What's up, Vanguardians? This is Jonathan SP Mindham here with a very special, I guess deck profile. I'm kind of coming in to explain this hype train that has been going on the last 24 hours here in the Vanguardians group, and I've seen good, bad. I've seen people be like, "There's now hype," and then I've seen people that are like, "There's such hype. I need to have these cards," and it's just one of those things where, legitimately, guys, this is not like Spec Duke in the respect of what happened. Like, this is based on an actual deck that did very, very well, and after a lot of testing, actually seeing why it did very well, and actually believing in the hype. I'm not generally a hype person. I've always played, what I feel is good, and for me, and after seeing this deck in motion, I have to agree, like, it is a good deck, and there's a lot of reason why, and it is definitely something that, like I said in many posts, out of 100 people, this deck took second place, and I expect it to continue to take off, just based on what goes on with the deck, and, like, why it's so good, and I think you'll see why, too. I'm hoping this explains it and stops all this drama about that admins are creating hype that isn't there. I mean, I think a lot of that is funny, but at the same respect, this is a legit thing. Like, I think we accelerated the process of people figuring it out, because if this goes into the team league, you're going to see everyone playing an Eradicator deck, and why not play something that can get you about 5 to 6 cards? Like, I think that's a huge advantage for a lot. So we're going to start out with the deck. And we're going to start out with one of the main components of the whole thing. Right here is Eradicator First Thunder Draco Kid. Woo! That is your starting Vanguard. And you notice the 2 on that, and that is for sure. We run 2 of him because there's those naysayers out there who says, "Oh, what if Kagura's got my draw trigger that retires it?" Well, cool. Like, again, I hate people who say stuff like that, because that's not the whole point of Vanguard. The whole point of Vanguard is actually having fun with the deck and actually playing it. And, like, yeah, you may or may not have someone who runs that deck, but again, you can't always just prepare for one clan, and, like, you have to just play a deck. Like, so we run 2 of him, though, because his effect is so good. It says during your turn, I mean, any point, when one of your opponent's rear guards is put in the drop zone from the rear guard circle due to the card effect. Now, be very careful, read what I'm saying here. Like, don't just listen to me. If you have a grade 3 Vanguard or greater, which his effect is wrong on area, with Eradicator its card name, you may pay the cost. If you do, look at the top 10 cards of your deck, search for card name Eradicator's Sweep Command Dragon. Again, this stuff is wrong from the deck, and write it and shuffle your deck. So this, we'll get to there, like, but this card is so important because of that effect. Like, you're gonna see why. Like, this is the combo. I mean, this could never be achieved when this card first came out during battle. I think we determined, like, it was just so hard to do it in battle that you couldn't superior ride and get the extra drive checks. Now we have ways to do that, which is awesome, and this is again why this deck should be hyped a little bit more, because you have the ability to superior ride and drive check just like you do with Pelennor and things. Problem with Pelennor and all that is I think it's a guy hit, and but we'll get to that later. Okay, so then they do go to a kind of unique trigger setup. They do 7 triggers, 7 crits. This one's kind of cool if if you have something that retires. If not, it's just a cool looking new crit trigger. Classics. Then they run 5 draw. This is the winning deck again. This is not anything to do with me. This is just what won. This is the winning deck. 4 heal. So pretty classic, like 7, 5, 4, and 2. I have tested this. I feel like this is good. It creates a lot of pressure. Like, the draw is there for a lot of reasons. But again, you could go 4, 8. Like, there's not a reason you couldn't. Again, this is just, again, what won in Japan. They're always very draw happy. They love their draws and the ability to draw, because you know what? Hand advantage is a huge thing in this game. Next, they're grade 1s. They have the new Perfect Guard that unflips if there's a copy of her in the drop zone. So, pretty classic, pretty good. Again, it can only Perfect Guard the Vanguard. Then over here, they have 1 Eradicator Ceremonial Bonfire Castor, which, again, this is not my build. Like, this is not what I would 100% go with. Like, I think it's good. Drop and draw, basically, when your opponent has 2 or less rear guards. Yeah, I mean, they run 1. I really don't understand, but again, that's what 1, so we're just going to keep it as that until later. 4 of the stride fodder card gains +2 when you stride, so it's pretty good. I definitely think that's a staple. Then they run 4 Rising Phoenix. This is the one point where I would not run that at 4. Like, I've tested it, and the one thing I've had a hard problem with is always having soul. Like, I don't know how the guy achieved always having soul, or just making sure he had that. Not me. It's like, I don't know. With ability not to Legion, because they don't run any Legion, like, the vast amount of draw you do in this deck is a little higher than I would ever want. But, again, this is not my build. I will modify this later, just because I think 4 is too high. 2 or 3 is fine. We'll go to grade 2s. Now, here's our old friend, been around since set 6, Draconic Death Scythe. He is so good again, because this deck has very little to no counterblast. He can snipe out something that's really annoying. Like, people are like, "Oh, what about your starter in that mirror match?" Well, yeah, that's good. Like, yeah, Counterblast 2 is a little heavy, but still, you can get rid of grade 2 or less. You can get rid of annoying things, i.e. Laurel, i.e. Bruno's. Like, this card is good in that respect, and it doesn't cause its controlled retiring. So, again, a classic. Pick them up again, because they are from set 6. They're out of print, hard to find. Pick them up. Next, new card. Best new card I think Narukami's ever gotten. Like, it is so good. Like, yes, it's not an Eradicator or whatever, but it's a staple for any Eradicator deck, or a Narukami deck going forward. Its thing is its abilities and its power are hindered because it has to be on the rear guard, so it can only attack. This unit cannot attack rear guards. And it says during your turn, this unit gets 3,000 plus the ability auto rear. Counterblast 1, when this unit attack hits a Vanguard, you may pay the cost. If you do, draw a card, choose a card in your opponent's drop zone, and bind it face up. That is so good to get a ability to, if it hits, it's better than like those used to be Counterblast 2 draw a card cards. You get 2 effects for this effect, but again, it's limited because of what it can do. But on turn 2, a 16k line makes your opponent drop a 10k if they're at a 9k Vanguard. Like, you can't let that hit, because not only that, because they get to bind something that you can't Legion fodder with, or something you can't get back, like if you're like me who play a Neo Nectar deck, it's gone. And you get 3,000 for the attack. It's super good. And this card came printed as a common. Like, so good. I can't wait to have 80 billion playsets of those, because it's such a good card for what it is. And if you ever ride on the Vanguard, yeah, it sucks, but for the most part, it's a very powerful rear guard that can always attack your Vanguard. The only thing that hinders it is that if your opponent at grade 3 is cross-ridden, it's the only time that really hurts it, because even at, if your opponent is 11k Vanguard, it always will hit. Like, attack with that first. Next guy is Volthorn Dragon. This is the special effect one that when it's boosted, you may, as long as you're at Generation Rank 1, Counterblast 1, when this unit attacks the Vanguard, this unit is boosted, you can pay the cost. If you do, your opponent chooses one of his rear guards, retires it, and binds that card face up. This card is what also helps make the Sweep Command deck so powerful, because it does it during battle. So if you remember, going back up, when your opponent's rear guards put in the drop zone, you may pay the cost. Search your deck. So if you remotely don't hit with the Vanguard, which we'll get to, that Vault Dragon helps accelerate the ability to drive, check, or superior ride. So, Vault Dragon, super good. Must be at a 4. Then we get into our grade 3s. And of course we have our good friend, Steve. There's not much more to say about this card. It's been around for a long time for us. This is a really good card in the respect of that he allows for the superior ride action to take place. He allows for you to retire a few things if you ride him. The only thing is his abilities are hindered on the Eradicator aspect, and the only Eradicators we really run are triggers. So if you're going to use his secondary ability, the auto, choose one of your rear guards with Eradicator card name, put it in your soul, place in the Vanguard circle, and pay the cost. If you do, choose one of your opponent's rear guards in the front row to retire it. You just need to make sure you call a trigger. And or I Descendant, but if you're riding into him, it's a little harder setup there. Then it's a limit break, of course, is the retire, draw a card, choose 5,000, blah 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 blah. Pretty classic, pretty normal, pretty basic. But his ability is what you, his starter in him is what you want. You want the ability to search him out, and that way you can drive check. And we'll get back. We'll show you more combos. Descendant, he is here because he is our late game finisher. He is the one guy we want. If your opponent's sitting at 5 damage and you can't stride and blah 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 blah, you want him. He is there for that very reason. He is no more than that. He's great stride fodder. I personally, I do enjoy him. Like, you know, he had his moment in the sun again. Everyone knows for a long time. But again, this is what makes him so good now, is that you have so much ability to retire, punish your opponent, and have this, you know, they're going to have a hard time guarding. So, and then the deck that won ran 1 Dragonic Vanquisher. This is the new card that when you stride over it, you may pay the cost. You do choose one of your opponent's rear guards in the front row and retire it, and bind that card face up. Not necessarily what we want. It's there, I think, for his secondary ability. I could be mistaken. When your opponent's rear guard is put in the drop zone, do an effect of one of your cards. This unit gets 3,000 plus extra crit. I think that's more so what is good about it, because, again, secondary ability is, if your opponent don't have a front row, you can't do his ability. So that's why he's ran at 1. He's a good card in that respect, but at the same time, like, he's not the star of the show. The Descendant sweep is, and that is all that we have there. And then we go to our strides, which we have this wonderful grade 4 Thunder Dragon Knight Zorus, which it says when this attack hits, choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it, and choose 2 cards in your opponent's drop zone and bind them face up. So this ability, once you stride over what, say, Steve or Descendant, allows you to trigger the Draco Kid, which basically allows you to look at the top 10 Superior Ride Steve. And what will end up happening is the stride unit will go back in the extra or the G zone deck, and then Steve just gets ridden on top. So it's a brand new unit, basically. There's no more power boost. Steve just becomes an 11k Vanguard. And that's a bit. That's it. That's what makes the combo so good. And then if you don't hit with this, and then you do Volthorn, you still get the Superior Ride on top of it. So the combo works very nicely. That's why you get 5 drive checks. You can get maybe 5 to 6 cards, depending on what your drive checks are and your draws, if you get draws. And, you know, when this is all said and done, your opponent's going to guard for a lot. If they don't have perfect guard, and Volt goes off, like, again, there's a lot going on. Like, there's a lot of power creep in this one little deck, based on just very few cards and very limited combo, but the combo is what wins. Then, over here, the final piece, this is the Persona Stride. If the number of face guards in your G zone is 2 or more, choose one of your rear guards in the front row and retire it until the end of turn. All units in your front row get 5,000 for each open rear guard in your opponent's front row. So he gets the power 2, your rear guards get the power, and if you got 2, your opponent has 2 zones empty, they each get 10,000. So imagine an entire front row automatically hitting for an extra 10,000. He is your late game finisher and also retire and also sets off effects. So he is something definitely to be feared, because, you know, at late game, after having 5 drive checks done maybe once or twice in the game, he is going to be hard to deal with. And he is so good for that respect, because, you know, you're not counterblasting anything, you're just persona flipping, and you're getting 10,000 to you, Vanguard and rear guards. Like, your opponent is going to have a very difficult time dealing with that. Well, guys, that again is the build that won. That is why it's hyped. That's why we're doing this. I can't stress enough, like, how good this has been in testing. I personally haven't lost with it yet. I've almost decked out with the deck because of how much a good match can go. And yes, resist units are a thing, but they're not. Every clan has one, and we won't have them all. You know, I haven't seen any for the Dimensional Police, I don't think, that in the extra booster. So this card is going to be very good going forward. I think you're going to see, regardless, you're going to see Narukami be a top-tier deck. All because of this guy. I mean, that's why you run 2 of them, and I've seen people even try to run 3 of them, but even that I don't feel is necessary. Getting his effect off once is deadly. Getting it off twice is just nasty. Like, so again, game finisher, you go into the stride at the very end, and you make your opponent cry a little inside. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you really are not going to buy into the hype. Let me know. I think the biggest thing for all of this is that this deck is more powerful than Kagero, because the amount of retire that you can do, where Kagero is very counterblast heavy, this deck really isn't. You don't have to do a whole lot to get their effects, and to get those drive checks. So I think this outspeeds it. And again, you know, when you have cards like Cheto, or whatever his name is, there you are, Chetura, you know, on turn 2 can be very deadly. So again, let me know, guys. Comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and like this video. And we will be talking to you all very much later. Thank you so much. Bye.